Reptilian humanoids are a recurring theme in mythology, ancient legends, religion, and history in every culture around the world. They are described as individuals or races of intelligent or otherwise highly developed reptilian-like beings, even gods. Theories of reptilian beings are dismissed by mainstream modern culture, but why do they so often appear in our ancient past? Let's explore the fascinating legends and origins of the ancient reptilian agenda from every corner of our world. There were many different and unique cultures since and possibly before mankind's inception in the Middle East that have origins and mythos that molded their society and culture that embraced around some form of reptilian-like gods. Only a handful of them were truly immersed into the existence of reptilian gods or beings and describe them and their actions with mankind in colorful and insightful detail. Sumer was one of the ancient civilizations and historical regions in southern Mesopotamia, modern-day southern Iraq, during the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Ages. Although the earliest specimens of writing in the region do not go back much further than 2500 BC, modern historians have suggested that Sumer was first permanently settled between 5500 and 4000 BC by a non-Semitic people who spoke the Sumerian language. It is commonly taught that the Sumerians were a single settlement of people who shared the same customs and culture. The Sumerians were actually several different but similar settlements and cultures within Sumer during a period of time within Persia. Although they are singularly grouped together, practices, beliefs, and culture differed from settlement to settlement and over time. The term Sumerian is the common name given to the ancient non-Semitic inhabitants of Mesopotamia, Sumer, and by the Semitic Akkadians. The Sumerians referred to themselves as O-Sagiga, literally meaning the black-headed people, and to their land as Ki-Inji, meaning place of the noble lords. The Akkadian word Shumer may represent the geographical name in dialect, but the phonological development leading to the Akkadian term Sumeru is uncertain. Sumerian city-states rose to power during the prehistoric Ubaid and Uruk periods. Sumerian written history reaches back to the 27th century BC and before, but the historical records remains obscure until the early dynastic third period, the 23rd century BC, when a now deciphered syllable writing system was developed, which has allowed archaeologists to read contemporary records and inscriptions. Classical Sumer ends with the rise of the Akkadian Empire in the 23rd century BC. Following the Gutian period, there is a brief Sumerian renaissance in the 21st century BC, cut short in the 20th century BC by Semitic Amorite invasions. The Amorite dynasty of Isin persisted until 1700 BC, when Mesopotamia was united under Babylonian rule. The Sumerians were eventually absorbed into the Akkadian population. The earliest known Sumerian civilization existed 7,000 to 8,500 years ago. Much of Mesopotamia shared a common culture called Ubaid, after the site where evidence for it was first found. Characterized by a distinctive type of pottery, this culture originated on the flat, alluvial plains of southern Mesopotamia around 6200 BC. Indeed, it was during this period that the first identifiable villages developed in the region, where people farmed the land using irrigation and fished the rivers and sea. Thick layers of alluvial silt deposited every spring by the flooding rivers cover many of these sites. Some villages began to develop into towns and became focused on monumental buildings such as Eridu and Uruk. The Ubaid culture spread north across Mesopotamia, gradually replacing the Halaf culture. Ubaid pottery is also found to the south along the west coast of the Persian Gulf, perhaps transported there by fishing expeditions. Baked clay figurines, mainly female, and lizard-like heads have been found at a number of Ubaid sites. In the early Ubaid period, little writings were found that would give insight into the details of this culture. Only pottery and passed-on oral traditions of this settlement written about around 3,000 to 4,000 years later. What is evident of the Ubaid culture is that it was deeply vested in reptilian-like humanoids, as many of the clay figurines and other depictions have been found in excavations. From the clay figurines, one gathers that the humanoids they were expressing were important, powerful, spiritual, and possibly existed as portrayed. Clay reptilian or praying mantis-style masks have been recovered, leading to conclude that the Ubaid people were trying to mimic some other being that they had either a high respect or a symbolic reference to, or possibly fear for these unusual entities. Sumerian myths were passed down through oral tradition until the invention of writing. Early Sumerian cuneiform was used primarily as a record-keeping tool. It was not until the late early dynastic period that religious writings first became prevalent as temple praise hymns and as a form of incantation called the Nam Sub. According to the written oral traditions, the Sumerians envisioned the universe as a closed dome surrounded by a primordial saltwater sea. Underneath the terrestrial earth, which formed the base of a dome, existed an underworld and a freshwater ocean called the Apsu. The deity of the dome-shaped firmament was named An. The earth was named Ki. First, the underground world was believed to be an extension of the goddess Ki, but later developed into the concept of Kegel. The primordial saltwater sea was named Namu, who became known as Tiamat during and after the First Sumerian Renaissance. The earliest historical records of Sumer do not go back much further than 2900 BC. The earliest Sumerian literature of the 3rd millennium BC identifies 4 primary deities: Anu, Enlil, Ninhursag, and Enki. The highest order of these earliest gods were described occasionally behaving mischievously towards each other, but were generally involved in a cooperative creation order. The most notable text uncovered is called the Enuma Elish, which has about 1,000 lines and is recorded in Old Babylonian on 7 clay tablets, each holding between 115 and 170 lines of the Sumero-Akkadian cuneiform script. Most of Tablet 5 has never been recovered, but aside from this lacuna, the text is almost complete. A duplicate copy of Tablet 5 has been found in Sultan Tepe in modern-day Turkey. It is here in the Enumar Elish, which details the history of the Ancient Ones, pre-Earth history, and the creation of the human race. The title, meaning when on high, is the incept. The first tablet begins, "When the sky above was not named, and the earth beneath did not yet bear a name, and the primeval Apsu who begat them, and Chaos, Tiamat the mother of them both. Their waters were mingled together, and no field was formed, no marsh was to be seen, when of the gods none had been called into being." It was Zechariah Sitchin who was one of the few scholars able to read and interpret ancient Sumerian and Akkadian clay tablets. He was privy to the thousands of clay tablets confiscated by the United Kingdom to decipher. According to Sitchin's interpretation of Mesopotamian iconography and symbolism outlined in his 1976 book, The 12th Planet and its Sequels, there is an undiscovered planet beyond Neptune that follows a long elliptical orbit, reaching the inner solar system roughly every 3,600 years. It was Sitchin's interpretation that some of these gods named were not just mere anthropomorphized natural phenomena occurring here on Earth, but were actually physical celestial bodies in space, and that technologically advanced humanoids called the Anunnaki visited Earth and created mankind. In these transcribed tablets, there is also a mention of the Ancient Ones, though not much else is mentioned about them other than that they existed before the Anunnaki, also called the Elder Gods. Although it does describe the Anunnaki were terrified of the Ancient Ones and dreaded their foretold return, fearing that they would reclaim the earth and take revenge on them. For this reason they devised many magical and other occult diverse means to prevent this from occurring. The Anunnaki demonstrate their fear and hatred of the Ancient Ones by describing them as crawling chaos and blaming them for all manner of hideous horror. But the tablets also reveal that the Anunnaki themselves, as a fierce, lustful, incestuous, bloodthirsty, deceitful, jealous, and conquering race, with a vested interest in keeping their creations ignorant about their true origins. The Sumerian texts also reveal that mankind is born of sadness, for he is of the blood of the Ancient Ones, but has the spirit of the Elder Gods breathed into him. And his heart goes to the Ancient Ones, but his mind is turned towards the Elder Gods. And this is the war which shall be always fought, until the last generation of man, for the world is unnatural. This could be interpreted as humans having the intelligence and self-awareness like the Anunnaki, but possess a heart or eternal soul of the Ancient Ones. Were the Anunnaki advanced extraterrestrial shape-shifting humanoids from another world that shaped the pre-Adamic man, ultimately giving us their intelligence for their own agendas? Were the Anunnaki reptilian shapeshifters a snake in the garden tempting us with knowledge, and once received there is no going back to a simpler existence of ignorant bliss? Were the ancient ones, the ones before the Anunnaki, a mention to a one God system that organized different actions of into multiple deities, since it is referred to in the plural?